Well, we're backstage today, ladies and gentlemen, with Jimmy Thackery. Though most people know Jimmy as one of the co-founders of the Nighthawks, the DC blues band from the 70s and 80s. That was only a short 15 years of Jimmy's career. He's been solo now for almost 25 years, and he's been the leader of his band, The Drivers, for near 20 years. So today we're going to talk to Jimmy a little bit about what makes the blues in your life. And I know you grew up in D.C. and you grew up in the 50s and 60s. What was the music, Jimmy, that you were listening to in those days that sort of had an influence on you?
Well, it really wasn't a whole lot of blues, although when you get down to it, I mean, it's just how you perceive it, because it really all comes from that, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So even the surf music and garage rock that we were all trying to play back in the early 60s and mid-60s and stuff, it has its roots in blues. I mean, I always say, look, you wouldn't have Lady Gaga if you didn't have Robert Johnson. It's all the same scale.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
It's just how it's presented.
Right.
But I, like anybody else in 1965 who had a guitar, we were playing Venture songs.
Yeah,
and, and you know, the Batman theme.
Yeah, you told me you were listening to the Peter Gunn and all these TV show themes.
I mean, TV themes were so cool back in those days. I mean, you had Mancini writing all these wonderful TV songs, and we were bombarded with that in the 50s, of course.
Yeah.
So, I realized somewhere along the line, I think after I had gotten my first Stones album or something, and realized that McKinley Morganfield was not in the Rolling Stones, and neither was Chester Burnett.
Right.
Who are these guys? Well, these are blues guys. Okay, so what I've been listening to and what's been resonating in my head is blues. Okay, so that's what this stuff is. Mm-hmm. So anyway, then
was Chuck Berry a part of that too? Because I know.
Yeah. Okay, I remember in D.C. I remember somebody moving into the neighborhood, and a big van pulled up, and these guys were unloading this moving van, and they had the radio on in the truck, and no particular place to go was playing. And these two guys were singing along with it. And it was just some of the heaviest stuff I'd ever heard. It was just greasy and cool. And, as my old departed bass player Wayne Burdett used to say, what's that noise and how can I make it?
Yeah.
That's what happens to all of us, I think, is the baseball bat comes up and goes wham.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, okay, well, I got to make that noise, whatever that noise is.
That's right.
And then, when you hear Howlin' Wolf the first time, you're going, okay, all bets are off. I'm sorry, all this other stuff is out the window. I'm going for this. And I remember Slim Harpo had a crossover hit with Scratch My Back. Yeah. And I remember hearing that on a little Japanese transistor radio with a little earphone in it. And amongst, Hang On Sloopy and everything else they were playing, I'm going, oh, what's this? Who's this guy?
Yeah.
So the stuff resonated with me. I just wasn't sure what to call it.
Right. Hey, speaking of what's that noise and I want to make it and all bets are off.
Yeah.
You always tell me a really cool Jimi Hendrix story. Right in the beginning of Hendrix's American, I guess, birth, you got to see him play, and that must have just, again.
Well, once again, we were all playing the garage rock.
Yeah.
We were playing standing up on stage like this and just playing. And Chandler had just brought Hendrix to the States. Mm-hmm. And his first show was in D.C. Yeah. It was at the Ambassador Theater. And they had the downstairs was all ages. They served beer up in the balcony. Mm-hmm. But the downstairs was all ages. And it was like a Fillmore, with the bubble light show and the whole thing. Well, a buddy of mine and I just happened to kind of walk in. We'd sort of heard Hey Joe on the radio, kind of familiar with that song. Walked in there, and this guy walks out on stage with one of those things. It turned up, that Marshall cabinet there just turned up to 11, as they say, wearing these clothes that would just, what is this? He looked like he had a Mahalia Jackson wig on or something, and a feather bow on. It was like, and started leaping about, doing somersaults and playing behind his head and all this stuff. And we were going, okay, well, this must be what show business is.
Yeah.
You know, must be that part.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he played a couple of nights later at the Hilton, the same one where Reagan was shot.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we went to that.
Yeah, yeah.
My neighbor got the guitar neck.
Really?
He got the guitar. Yeah. When Hendrix busted his Strat up and threw it in the audience, my neighbor grabbed the neck out of the air and probably still has it.
Yeah.
That's what it's worth.
Wow.
Yeah, it made a big impression. You know?
What did it do for you as a guitar player then, to watch what he did musically?
Redefined it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a few people that have come along that have redefined how we play that instrument. T-Bone was one of them.
Yeah.
Chuck was one of them.
Yeah.
Hendrix was one of them. And I know everybody's going to laugh at me, but I think Mark Knopfler is one.
Oh.
I think his technique on a Stratocaster has changed. You know, it's redefined how you played that particular instrument.
Right.
There's been a few guys that you count them on one hand, really.
Yeah,
That you know, up until a certain point, everyone approached that instrument like this, and there were variations of it. And then this guy comes along, and okay, everything's changed now.
Yeah.
We
Did that
changed
open a whole door for you in terms
Yeah.
of what was possible
Oh
now?
yeah, because nobody played feedback before in Midnight Hour. I
Right.
mean, it just was not done.
Yeah.
You know, and here he was doing that stuff and doing the acrobatics.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
nobody'd seen that.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, because you said you were hearing blues growing up in the rock and roll and the surf, and could you hear the blues in Jimmy?
Yeah, because he would. I didn't know that's what it was.
Yeah.
But you know, he would do Red House and stuff in the show.
Yeah.
And that was blues.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
You know, later on, I could figure out what that was. I just didn't know what it was at the time.
Right.
You know, look, all those bubble light shows and stuff going on and black lights. You know, and it was like, Mommy! We don't know what's going on here.
I know. But I love that sound.
That's
Keep it
really
up.
cool, whatever that
Oh, I
guy's
know.
doing. You know.
Oh, I know.
I want to do that now.
I know.
You know.
Yeah, I saw him in 70 in June, 3 months before he died, but I saw him in the Boston Garden.
Right.
And I missed the light show, being in that more intimate setting with the light show where you were just getting, your senses were getting bombarded.
Yeah.
You know, in a giant stadium or Boston Garden, everything was kind of lost in there.
Right.
But I had seen enough other things, that, you know, and heard enough of him. I
Well,
mean, I was-
Baltimore Civic Center, and he was towards the end of his life because he had Mitchell back.
Okay, yeah.
He had Billy Cox on bass, but he had Mitchell back on drums.
Yeah, yeah.
And it wasn't long after that he was gone.
Yeah. Well, again, most people, as I said in the introduction, most people associate Jimmy Thackery with the Nighthawks, but Jimmy Thackery is so much more than the Nighthawks, but that's an important part of your career.
Hey, look, you know, that developed me as a player as much as anything.
Yeah.
And we got to play with our heroes.
You did.
And we were just in the right place at the right time, and
Yeah.
we're able to back up Otis Rush.
Yeah, I know.
You know, I mean, come on.
Yeah, and you're one of the few people who's played with all of
those people,
all
with
those
Muddy
people.
Waters and
Yeah.
Otis Rush and Big Walter Horton and,
Right.
and J.D. Hutto and Jimmy Rogers and Fenton Robinson and blah, 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 you know, Johnny Littlejohn, Jimmy Fast Fingers Dawkins and Johnny Winter, and, you know, those guys were all there. We played with them.
yeah.
We backed them up.
Yeah, I think
know.
you told me before, you booked them and brought them to
Yeah,
DC
yeah.
and said, we'll be your band, you know,
Yeah.
so you guys had a little business venture going. But as a guitar player, to see all these guys coming through, does it make you feel self-conscious or how? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
You know, and
Sure.
and do you then how do you
But, you know, when you're
yeah.
23 or whatever
Yeah.
I was, and those guys are standing next to you, you got your eyes on them.
Yeah.
You're watching everything they do, and you're soaking it up like a sponge. You
Yeah.
know, so all of that stuff comes out of them, goes in here, and somewhere it gets distilled, and it comes out in my playing somewhere down the line. You know, there's a little bit of every one of those guys
Right.
in what I do.
And every one of their styles is different. And
Absolutely.
that's the neat thing, or the interesting thing about the blues, is there's so many different styles. There's a T-Bone Walker style.
Right.
There's an Otis Rush style. As a guitar player, how hard is it to learn all of those styles? And well, first to learn them, and then to assimilate yourself into them. Is this a years of
you know,
study?
look, it comes down to you're hearing these records, you can't help but pick up your instrument and go, okay, once again, what's that sound and how do I make it?
Right.
Okay, so you hear ring, ding, ring, ding, ring, you hear
Yeah.
T-Bone do that.
Yeah.
Oh, I can do that. Okay. So 20 years later, that lick's going to come out in maybe something you wrote.
Right.
You know.
Right.
It's just a distillation process.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, you take all that stuff and it eventually, this is what I keep trying to tell the younger guys. It's wonderful that you're emulating Stevie.
Yeah.
And he'd be pleased, believe me. And we're all happy for you. The fact is, what you need to do now that you've got that,
Right.
you need to get rid of that. You need to be able to strive. You need to strive for what Keith Richards has, which is by the second note, you know it's the Rolling Stones.
Right. Right.
You
right.
know it's Keith Richards.
Yeah.
By the second note of the intro of any given song.
Yep.
That's where you need to be.
Yeah. Mark Knopfler the same way.
Same thing.
You know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I had something else I was going to ask, but are you at that point where within the second note you know it's Jimmy Thackery coming out of the
People
guitar?
tell me that. I don't believe them for a minute.
Yeah.
But the people do say that. I wish, among wishes, that was true. But then again, my perception of what I do is completely different. I've figured this out after 41 years in show business. What I do and my perception of it is one thing. What that guy gets out of it is totally his own. It's a totally different thing. People say you sound so angry. Really?
Yeah.
I'm sitting on a rainbow with my head in the clouds. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, it's just everyone's perception of the musical note that you play has got a different take.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.